So I've been seeing this conversation on the internet all day where 21 Savage said fuck the streets and everybody is in an uproar. He said fuck the streets, everybody like, oh, if you gonna say fuck the streets, you gotta get out here and do something for these kids. You can't just be promoting it in your music and using the streets to market yourself. You gotta change. And while that may be true, right, I can agree with that. I don't think 21 Savage is just saying fuck the streets. I think he's talking about the difference between two different systems, right? It's two different systems here. You got the system of the streets and you got the music industry. Two different things, right? And if we look at the origin of the streets and how just the streets was created, the streets was some shit for us to internally govern ourselves. So if you was doing some bullshit in the community or the police was fucking with you, you had somebody to document it or help you, right? That's why in gang culture you hear about people getting DP'd, you getting disciplined because you did some fuck shit in the neighborhood. We got to tell you that ain't cool. We got to show you that ain't cool. And hip hop, which is the second system, was always like the journalist of the streets. We reported what was going on in the streets. So I know as a rapper, when I got into rapping, I was documenting what was going on around me. I wasn't necessarily always talking about my experience. I could talk about my older cousin who's been shot or my uncle who sold drugs. I document different things. Hip hop, we became the journalists of the streets. And at some point when the internet had a big boom, the participants that were actively in the streets started participating in hip hop. They weren't just the guys that protected the rapper anymore and invested in the rapper. They started actively rapping themselves. And the problem with that is like, you're rapping about illegal activity, things you're actively fucking doing that you shouldn't be publicly talking about because it's illegal, which makes me go to my next point, right? The streets aren't scalable. You can't scale the streets, right? And for those who don't know what scale means, is you can't grow it into something, right? You can't scale the streets because if you could scale the streets, you wouldn't need exit routes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't sit up here and tell me if a building's burning and 100 people in there and 3 people make it out that it's a safe zone. No, it's a lot of people that's been killed in jail because of the streets. Very few people make it out. And then you might hear people say, well, people took their money from the streets and put it into music or put it in the laundromats and barbershops. But that's not scaling the streets. You just moved your money into a different system. You didn't scale being a drug dealer. You just took money from drug dealing and went and started being a barbershop owner in that system. You didn't legalize drug dealing. And that's what I think 21 Savage is overall saying, right? We can't move in corporate structures with survival tactics that helped us in the neighborhood, right? Like, you can't continue to move off not snitching and loyalty and all of these different things that the streets is built off of in billion-dollar corporations because it doesn't translate. It's like, what are we talking about? It's business now. We're not operating off scare tactics. You got to show me some type of term sheets. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think 21 Savage is abandoning what he comes from. I don't think he's saying, fuck what I come from. Fuck, the streets taught him how to hustle, taught him his instincts. You know what I mean? Taught him pretty much everything you know. That's why you probably hear people say the streets made me. The streets gave people their identity. You know what I mean? So I don't think he's saying, fuck what I learned from the streets or fuck my origin of where I come from. I think he's saying, fuck the idea of bringing that concept into these billion-dollar industries. Because you can't, it doesn't translate. You can't scale it into anything. And we're not operating in the streets anymore. We're operating in the music business. So I don't think this shit is about whether if the streets matter or not. You know what I'm saying? I think what the streets is figuring out is if their moral authority can survive corporate enforcement. You know what I'm saying? Because if the rules only matter based off somebody's value, that's not rules. That's leverage. Like, you're using that whenever it's to your advantage, and that's not fair. You know what I'm saying? So overall, what I'm trying to say is, I guess, the streets has been there for a lot of people. You know what I mean? People who couldn't get jobs, people that need to feed their families, get out the hood. The streets and opportunities of the streets have been there to help people get out. But what we have to understand is things that we lived by in the past shouldn't dictate how we operate in our future, right? And that's for anybody watching this, artist that's watching this. If you jumping into a new system or a new environment, the streets, whatever, a new job, podcasting, whatever, you can't expect the rules you come from to operate the same in a new space you trying to head to in your future. That's just not how it works. You got to operate and learn the instructions of that system and learn how that system works and apply those rules to how you move as a human being. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to everybody that was watching this. Remember, don't try to take street tactics into business. You could take certain things you learn, but you can't expect the rules of what that was to transition over into a corporate system, because that's not the rules that system was built off of. Till next time, see y'all soon.